Thank you very much, Excellency Al-Falasi. Was very interesting that through the example of Abu Dhabi and the Emirates in general, you have illustrated the important role of governance in the energy reform sector, and particularly with the presence of the privates. Also, you have illustrated that the advance in desalination, the important role of non-conventional water resources use when, as a way to address water scarcity from the supply side. And interesting also the comprehensive integrated modeling approach for all the sector. But one thing also came quite as a highlight is the nexus between markets of water and energy. That's interesting to be considered for future discussion. With that, thank you again for your contribution. And I would like to ask now Mr. Sapiano to give his presentation. Mr. Manuel Sapiano is a Chief Executive Officer of the Energy and Water Agency within the Malta's Ministry for Energy and Water Management. In his role, he coordinates a team of experts with the responsibility for the formulation, evaluation, monitoring, and implementation of national policy concerning the use of energy and water in a sustainable manner and the formulation of plans to meet the national and European Union energy and water resource management targets. He also coordinates the Energy and Water Agency's identification of and participation in research and development initiative in the energy and water sector, mainly focusing on issues such as the water and energy demand management, use efficiency, renewable energy, groundwater resource management, and policy assessment and formulation. Ms. Sapiano, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, my talk will focus on security of supply of water resources in a water scarce context, which characterizes, I would say, our country, Malta, but also most of the countries in the Mediterranean region and around. Well, when we talk about water management in our countries, we have a different starting point, and it is very important that anyone who discusses or tries to view water management in our countries starts from the point of view of unavailability. We do not have sufficient natural water resources, and therefore the main objective of our policies remain ensuring an adequate supply of water to people, to the economic activities, but also, importantly, respecting the needs of our environment. And therefore, I would say the three keywords of any policy in the water sector, particularly in our countries, are security of supply, the balancing between supply and demand, and also environmental protection. And in this context of balancing supply and demand, I would wish to spend a couple of minutes discussing, I would say, the philosophy behind water management as I see it in our country. Well, the need for water arises from a number of different factors. Population increase, our climate and climate change, the changes in our economy, and also the way we use water. But all these factors contribute towards defining our water demand. Also, as a result of our water demand, we can have impacts. So the degradation in natural water resources, if we use too much, potentially unavailability of supply. Also illegal water uses, and also other long-term economic impacts. More often than not, we focus on the bottom part of this flowchart. So we try to focus on degradation. We try to focus on availability, on illegal uses. However, if we try to view our water management as a cause-effect relationship, I would say that the main defining factor is water demand. And it is on this water demand management that we have tried to build up water policies in Malta. So therefore, the focus of the policy is addressing water demand by all sectors. We can have an objective, and that is ensuring water use is kept at very high efficiency levels. Therefore, managing demand, and the tools to use include education and awareness, legislation, economic tools, and we can talk about positive economic tools, incentives, and negative economic tools, disincentives, technology, and also infrastructure and works. Once more, but we are coming from countries which have scarce natural water resources, and therefore, yes, demand is a very important factor, but meeting demand will still be challenging, will still be almost impossible, even if we keep high efficiency levels. And therefore, as I said in the beginning, recognizing that we do not have enough natural water resources, we need to complement water demand management with water supply augmentation. And describing Malta's policy in a very, very simple diagram, it's basically having this balloon of water demand and trying to address it, trying to keep it as small as possible through demand management, whilst also trying to meet the needs through supply augmentation. Important that this policy needs tools to be implemented, these needs measures to be implemented, and these measures need to be based on the three important currencies, which are key facets of water management. There is the water and environment nexus, so yes, the environmental aspect, meeting our environmental objectives. There is the social aspect, water and population. We need measures which can be implemented by people, and also the financial aspects, because measures needs to be bankable, needs to be financed, needs to be paid after all. So let's move to the context of Malta. A small island, but a very high population density, which means a high rate of urban land cover, a typical Mediterranean climate, low rainfall, but worse than low rainfall is a very low effective rainfall because of evapotranspiration. In fact, looking at Malta, the natural water availability stands at around 70 cubic meters per person per year, and this includes all the activities which need to be done. In fact, if we compare Malta with other European countries, we can see the characteristics of the Mediterranean region coming out. Our population density is very high compared to all the other countries, but then if we look at the natural water availability, we're also at the top, but at the top from the negative side. So those 70 cubic meters per year per person in Malta can be compared to over 20,000 cubic meters in Finland. That's the spread of conditions in Europe. And if we look at what the UN defines as water availability, at sufficient water availability, we look at that 500 cubic meter per person per year threshold, which actually defines the manageable capability of a country in water. 70 is much more or less than 500. But this said, we're here, we're talking about Malta. So the important thing is to look at what have we done. So what have been our measures? Nothing impossible. First of all, demand management. At a national level, leakage management and distribution networks. Looking back at the 1990s, so that's almost 30 years now, a leakage management program was started, and as a result of that program, water demand for cities today is around 60% of what it was in the 1990s. And that takes into consideration population increase and increased standard of living. Therefore, managing your systems, ensuring efficiency is important. Behavioral measures, keeping constant contact with the population because the volume of water we use depends a lot on how we use water. And currently, but not just currently, even years before, we've been always trying to tackle and keep people aware on how water should be managed. And also, the message here needs to be positive. It's what one can do, not just what the country can do, but what I, in my personal behavior every day, can do. My 2-3 liters saved, if transformed over the whole population, can make a big difference. And this is the empowerment message which we try to give. Also, education. National Water Conservation Awareness Center has been developed, operational for the last 3 years, and here we try to involve kids in a fun way. Well, yes, water ties with the environment, there is climate change, but most of the time we hear negative messages. With kids, let's try to give a positive message. What can they do? Try to give the message why they are playing games, and having fun. So it's a different type of way of giving the message. And we are proud that this year, this process which we have developed at this center has been granted the European Union Sustainability Award by the European Commission for exactly the contribution of this sustainable educational program to the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals in Malta. Looking at supply augmentation, each country has groundwater management as one of its problems, but let us recognize and let us be very, very clear. Groundwater cannot be managed in isolation. It needs to be managed within an integrated framework. People need water, and as policymakers, as regulators, as operators, we need to supply that water. If this is not groundwater, it needs to be other resources. So therefore, it's groundwater management within a context of the urban and the national water cycle. Therefore, in groundwater management, we look at improved management of abstraction, particularly private, not just by limiting water, but also by trying to develop alternative supplies which people can use. And also augmentation schemes like managed aquifer recharge, and trying also as we go along to increase our knowledge. Desalination. Reverse osmosis desalination, yes, we hear a lot that it is an energy-intensive process, but we need to look at how the sector is developing. If we look at Malta, during the last 20 years, the energy needs for desalination have been halved. Also, looking at a period, let's say from the 90s till today, the share of desalination in the energy water demand of the country has gone down from around 10-12% to less than 3%. And that is through demand management, yes, but also through specific management of the energy used in the plants. We are projecting that the next, let's say the most advanced desalination plant which we would have the energy rating going down to 2.4 kilowatt hours per cubic meter. Compare that to 20 years ago when that was 8 kilowatt hours per cubic meter. Therefore, we need to keep abreast of technologies and also create these linkages between energy and water. Wastewater reclamation. Another aspect, particularly for agriculture, if we can believe in substitution of supply. Farmers need water, and we have an obligation to give water to farmers, subject that they use it efficiently. If it is not groundwater, what? And water use comes in importantly here, and through an important program which Malta has launched since the last 3 years, we are looking at steadily increasing the use of reclaimed waters in agriculture, landscaping and industry as also subsectors. And in its first phase, we are trying to meet around 30% of the needs of the agricultural sector through water use. But let's not forget our history, let's not forget our tradition, our heritage, particularly in the Mediterranean, which I would say was also a cradle of water management solutions. Rainwater, limited, yes, but we need to harvest rainwater. Cisterns, valley dams, they are all also factors which are important because, yes, we can look at the new technology, but let's not forget the heritage which our countries, Malta, Egypt, and all the Mediterranean countries have built up throughout the years. Another important aspect is governance, particularly stakeholder engagement, and this is done at different levels in Malta, trying to involve not just the ministries and ensure that ministries point towards the same direction, that different policies point towards the same direction, but also active engagement with user associations and NGOs. We need their opinions on board. We need to take account of their concerns. And this is done through the development of a national water forum, a national water table, where public entities and private entities discuss water management together. Trying to arriving at the closure of my presentation, yes, we're talking about SDGs. And if we look broadly at the water policies developed by Malta throughout the years, we see a lot of alignment to SDGs, particularly SDG 6. So if we're looking at 6.1, access to safe and affordable drinking water. 6.3, reducing pollution and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse. 6.4, increase water use efficiency. 6.5, integrated water resources management. And let's say the A and B indicators, international cooperation and also participation of the local communities. As you can see, our policies are actively built on the principles of the SDGs. And this is also another point, another proof of the importance of which the SDG framework brings about. To actually close and putting and resting this presentation in a Mediterranean context, we need also to look at the Union for the Mediterranean's water agenda. And this Mediterranean water agenda is important because it provides the facility, the opportunity of adapting water technologies, water practices from Europe, but other regions, to the Mediterranean context. If we look at the building blocks of this, or the thematic initiatives of this water agenda, water, energy, food, ecosystems, water, employment and migration, supply and sanitation, climate change. These are all thematics which are important for our region and the surrounding areas of our region. So we, as Malta, but I believe also we as Mediterranean countries, have this big opportunity, which is the development of this water agenda, which we should discuss, we should bring out, we should support, particularly because it can give this regional cooperation, give this support between each other, which can improve the way we treat water and the way we consider water. From the point of Malta, Malta is leading a LIFE project, an integrated project, which is developing a management blueprint for coastal regions and islands which face water scarcity. It's an 8-year project. Now it's in its first 2 years. It's called River Basin Management, so RBMP LIFE Malta. It has recently received the UFM label, so because of its regional component, and through this project, we are ready to engage with other Mediterranean countries, discuss our experiences, share experiences, learn from each other, and I would say this very important factor of learning from each other and developing together not just country policies, but a regional policy which supports integrated water management for all the Mediterranean countries. Thank you.